Hello guys, it is me Victoria, and for today's video I am going to share with you one of the most important things I have ever learned in my entire life, and that is the 5 secrets of effective communication. And it was developed by Dr. David Burns, who also happens to have cured me of suicidal depression in my early 20s, and I credit him with basically making me a happy person, completely reorganizing my brain and all my attitudes and beliefs, and giving me a positive outlook on life. And everything I learned from him has been pure gold, and I'm really hoping some of you guys will look him up today. So I've brought on my channel today my friend and Team CBT coach, which is Dr. Burns' therapy framework. So he's a coach who practices Dr. Burns' methods and techniques, and he's absolutely incredible. If any of you guys are struggling with depression or anxiety or anything like that, I really recommend you work with him. But he's also incredibly good at the 5 secrets, and he runs a class on it. I practice with him myself, and he's just so good. So I thought I'd interview him about what they are so you guys can learn it. And I'm telling you, this is so important. It's changed my life in so many different ways. It's helped me with my dad. It's helped me with my mom. It's helped me 100% in my romantic relationship. So I really want you guys to learn it. So without further ado, let's get into the video.
The 5 secrets really are just a way to communicate with someone else that you want to get closer to. And as it indicates, there's 5 different parts of the algorithm, so to speak. The first one is disarming technique. The second one is thought and feeling empathy. The third one is I feel statements. The fourth one is stroking. And the last one is inquiry. And just real quickly, disarming technique is where you basically try to find truth in the other person's criticism, no matter how unfair or unreasonable that criticism may seem. Thought and feeling empathy is when you quite simply repeat back to the other person what they're saying, and then you make a guess as to how they may be feeling in that moment. The I feel statement is when you express in an authentic way how you're feeling. Stroking is you show warmth and admiration for the other person in a genuine, authentic way. And inquiry is when you kind of throw the ball back in their court and you ask them open-ended and close-ended questions on, their thoughts and opinions and feelings on kind of what's going on with them, and expressing interest in hearing this. Quite simply, those are the 5 secrets. And the idea with these secrets is to give you like a roadmap and a formula to engage in a back and forth and really to build a closer and more meaningful relationship. I learned the 5 secrets through David Burns's works. He's written a bunch of different books. He's got a podcast called Feeling Good. And he wrote a book called Feeling Good Together, which specifically focuses on relationships and using the 5 secrets and other advanced empathy techniques to communicate with loved ones, family members, and acquaintances, things like that. And for me, the 5 secrets is just this idea of how to communicate with other people you want to get close to and build better relationships with. It gives you an easy to use kind of like algorithm in a sentence by sentence way to communicate. And I found it to be very effective, and it's had a profound impact in my life. And it's really just been revolutionary. I think for me, the reason why they're so powerful is because looking back, whenever I ever had difficult conversations or interactions with my family members, my parents, my brothers, loved ones, girlfriends, my wife, people at work, there was no plan or program on how to communicate. I just knew I either felt happy or angry or frustrated, but I never knew how to process those feelings and how to convert those into words. And with the 5 secrets, I start getting into the shoes of how the other person is thinking and feeling. And then I'm able to think how I feel, and then to put those in words where the other person is going to really appreciate that. And usually, if you do it successfully, they'll end up building a better relationship. Where before, I felt like I was either not communicating at all because I was so upset or frustrated or angry, or I would be communicating under pure gut level emotion, which had the predictable side effects. Where the five secrets, there are literally 5 different aspects of how to communicate with a person in any individual conversation. And for me personally, that's just been mind blowing and revolutionary, because now when I communicate with someone, I was literally thinking, am I using this secret? Oh, they're using that secret. How do I respond to this? And it's a complete game changer from my perspective.
Same. Like I'm always like so amazed at how well they work. And when people use them on me, I'm just like, how is that everything I wanted to hear, but didn't even know I wanted to hear? So let's just get into them.
The first 5 secrets is the disarming technique. And this is really the most important and also the most difficult of the 5 secrets. And as the name implies, we're literally trying to disarm the other person's criticism. And so if someone is kind of coming at you in a like hot and heavy way with a direct criticism or a put down or some kind of attack, the idea of the disarming technique is really to try to find some truth in that criticism, no matter how unfair or inaccurate or untrue that criticism may seem to you. And the reason why that's so difficult is because obviously we've all been there when we've been arguing with loved ones or family members, and they say, you never listen to me, or you're always like shutting me out of the conversation. And that's obviously not true, but the person is trying to say something different than what they're actually saying. But their idea is that you're not listening to me. You're not paying attention to me. You're not caring for me. And what we want to do is try to agree with or disarm that criticism. And this is really based on this concept of what Burns likes to call the law of the opposites, where if we agree with the criticism, we disprove it. But once we disagree with the criticism, we're actually proving the criticism as true. And it's paradoxical and it's contradictory and it's kind of against human nature. But once we agree with the criticism, it kind of takes the fuel out of the fire, and the person no longer has the urge to keep attacking or criticizing you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I used to do that a lot in my YouTube comments. And then maybe somebody who was totally hating on me at first kind of melted in a way, and was like incredibly powerful. And I was so glad I did it. Whereas anytime I try to just defend myself against any criticism, it usually completely backfires. And now we're fighting. The person hates me even more. They're just like, I was right about you. That's all I have to say, like goodbye forever. They probably just have this horrible impression of me for life.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you're right. And I think when I first started learning about the disarming technique, it does go against our human nature. But once you do it, the outcomes are usually fantastical. I mean, it's really unbelievable, because you're basically agreeing with the other person's criticism. And once you meet with them where they are, they oftentimes will start making the counter argument. They start taking your side, because then they start feeling bad because you're agreeing with their criticism. I would say this also, beyond this concept of the law of the opposites, this really heavily relies upon this concept of like the death of the ego. And although that might sound kind of grandiose, the idea there is that what we're really trying to do is let go of our ego, let go of our need and our desire to win the argument and to be right and to be justified, but to actually let that part of us die, so to speak, so that we can bring joy and happiness in the relationship and the conversation we're having right here. Because it's the ego and the desire to be right and to be justified and look smarter or better. That's what usually leads to conflict.
Yeah.
And I would say maybe you could even maybe just give me like a quick criticism, and I'll just respond to you with a quick disarmament technique.
I'll give you one that people give me on this channel a lot. So are you whispering? Because like your voice is so soft. Why do you talk so quietly?
Oh yeah, I have been, I do generally whisper on these videos, and I get that all the time. So I I gotta 100% agree with you there, because it is kind of one of my things that I kind of naturally do, and sometimes I don't even realize I'm doing it. But I am working on that. But um, yeah, I appreciate you pointing that out, and I'm sure that could be kind of annoying for you at times, and it's something I'm looking to improve. But I look forward to continuing to talk to you in the future about the podcast, and I thank you for your interest.
Fantastic.
I would also say, just it's also worth pointing out that the disarming technique, it doesn't have to always be in response to criticism. Those are generally the ones that are actually most difficult, because in the heat of the moment, someone's criticizing you, the last thing you want to do is agree with them. But it does feel really good if the other person is saying something that's positive, like, oh, I just went to the Mets game the other day, it was so exciting, it was so fun, and everyone's having a great time. For you just agree with them and say, oh yeah, that does sound really fun, that was great, I remember going to a game last year, we all had a great time, where that's actually maybe considered easier. But I know personally, I never used to do that. But when you kind of join in with their positive feelings, people like that. I know me personally, sometimes in the past, I would actually give the opposite. I would do like an anti-disarming technique if someone was saying something positive. It's like, oh yeah, but those games are too expensive, and they're so crowded, and the food's so expensive. I just found it really annoying. Well, this person was just saying to you that they were really happy, and all you did is just point out, or all I did was just point out really annoying and uncomfortable things I didn't like about it, and that was an anti-disarm. So it doesn't always come in with directly from criticisms. You can do it in positive interactions as well. There are these two main concepts for the disarming technique: the law of the opposites and the death of the ego. And I would say, even if we step back even a little bit further, the general concept of the 5 secrets are, like I said before, when these are tools to use if you want to, in general, kind of get close to the other person, right? And another concept of the 5 secrets, which is anti-intuitive and kind of anti-human nature to some degree, is to not help or cheer up or rescue or to give advice to the other person. So if someone was kind of complaining or venting, we all know, like our parents or friends, if you're feeling down, they're going to cheer you up, but you got this, and everything's going to be okay, or you're really smart, you'll get another job in no time. And while the people that are saying those things all have the best intentions, usually, from the other person's perspective, they're actually really irritating, because what they're not doing is they're not validating that person's feelings in that moment. So whether that person is feeling angry or frustrated, upset, down, despairing, the other person is not acknowledging that. They're actually kind of ignoring it. So that's almost like anti-disarming technique. So that's what makes it so difficult, because we've been kind of trained our whole lives to not only not use the 5 secrets, but oftentimes do the opposite of the 5 secrets. So I would say there'd be like a third rule with the 5 secrets in general. It's just not to cheer up, not to cheerlead, not to help, not to rescue, not to give advice, and really just generally not to help out. Those things could be okay to do later on in the conversation, but once you've acknowledged the other person's feelings.
Yes. Yeah. So when you're cheerleading and giving advice, when you're cheerleading, you're basically telling them, don't feel that way, be happy, you're crazy, everything's going to be great.
In some ways, you're like, shut up, stop complaining, this is too uncomfortable for me.
Yeah, totally.
You're dismissing their concerns. You're not trying to understand and appreciate things from their perspective.
Yeah. And just this like one concept, the disarming technique, has made the most difference of like any relationship tip, podcast, book, like anything I've ever learned. Because like when me and my boyfriend, like heat of the moment, I don't see things his way. I cannot understand what he's talking about. Just remembering that, even though, like you were kind of saying in the beginning, like even though to me certain things might be inaccurate, or he might be saying it in like a dramatic way, or I mean, usually that's what I do, but there's still like that grain of truth underneath it all. He does have a point, And like, I just have to make this kind of like mindset shift. I'm like, all right, find the point, like find what he's saying, beneath the way it's being said, what is the valid point he's trying to make? And I feel like that just changes everything, because instead of like fighting, defending myself, you're wrong, no, absolutely not, I just switch. I'm like, let me just try to understand like his perspective, and just knowing that I have to disarm, and knowing that that's really the only way to get through a disagreement or an argument, is to see the other person's point and understand it. I just feel like changes everything.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I love what you're saying, because that is the other exactly what you're saying about the 5 secrets. It's not even so much the technical use of the 5 secrets. It gives you like a game plan within the conversation. So even before words come out of your mouth, you start thinking about, what would a disarming technique be here? So you start having to think of, someone's coming at you with something that's really unfair or inaccurate, or maybe objectively not true. But you have to think, well, what would be a disarming technique? What is this person really getting at? So then you're basically, it's almost like this forced empathy of the other person, trying to put yourself in their shoes. And that mindset shift, like you mentioned, is massive. And that has a very like therapeutic and calming effect, because you're now you're not responding at the gut level. You're kind of thinking about things a little bit more intellectually, and say, okay, so what is actually going on here? How what is the other person thinking, feeling, and how can I address that? And yeah, you're right. That's, for me, that's been the most powerful thing. And honestly, whenever I've had disagreements with my wife and I haven't been able to actually respond with any 5 secrets, just, I will sometimes have no response, but just thinking through the 5 secrets has a real calming effect, because I start putting myself in her shoes. Say, what could a disarming technique would be? Why would she be so upset here? What could she be feeling right now? How am I feeling? And what are some things that I really like about her?
Yeah.
And just having a game plan just provides so much, like a sense of empowerment, which is naturally calming, I feel. So I would say, even like a typical example, if someone comes at you and says, you never listen to me. Well, it's obviously probably not true that you literally never listen to the other person. But if you want to kind of listen to the music, so to speak, behind a person's criticism, what they're really saying is that you're not really paying attention to their concerns or their frustrations, and you haven't been there for them. So a disarming technique would be something like, well, yeah, you're right, honey. I've just been really distracted and out of pocket for the last couple of days. We're just really busy with work, and I haven't been focusing on your concerns. And you've been mentioning some things the last couple of days, and I've been kind of blowing you off, and I haven't really been showing any interest or curiosity in what's been going on in your life. And I can imagine that was super frustrating, irritating. Maybe you even felt a little angry at me. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? How difficult that was for you, and how are you feeling right now?
No, seriously, but that would be like so amazing to hear. It's like, as you said, those little things, I just feel like little like parts like pinging. I'm like, yes. And it's just so unexpected too, because that's kind of what makes it even more powerful, I feel like, is you never expect someone to react that way. But when someone just comes at you in this opposite way, they just are so open and understanding, you never expect it. And you're just like, wow, thank you. Like, I'm even more grateful to you now. Like, it's just
Yeah,
mind blowing. Like the
yeah, you're right.
kindness.
Yeah, and you're right. 99.9% of people don't do that, and that's why it can be so mind blowing in the moment when you do implement it for the first time. Right? It kind of characterizes it almost like seeing the matrix, because once you start recognizing and using the 5 secrets of your own life, you start seeing and appreciating what other people do with you, like you were
Yeah.
just talking about, and it feels so good. Like if you've been talking to someone at a call center and you're complaining, we've all been there, and they do a great disarming technique with you, and like, oh yeah, that is really frustrating.
Yeah.
I can imagine you felt, really annoyed by this, and you just feel your tension start decreasing. Where someone starts doing something, gets very defensive, like, well, this really wasn't our fault technically.
Yeah.
Um, that just makes you more upset and more frustrated.
Yeah, totally.
And one thing I would say, there are a couple errors with it, as with all the five secrets, but I'd say maybe the most common one that I can think of off the top of my head is if you say, I can see why you might feel that way. Um, Although that may seem like a disarming technique, it's actually the opposite. And it's actually quite irritating because you're not actually acknowledging how the other person is feeling. You're saying, I could see that, but I really don't agree with it. And so now the other person is going to be even more upset at you. And that's where this death of ego comes in. You have to just, it almost seems like you're trying to do disarming technique, but hold on to the ego. And what you really need to do is let the ego go and just completely own it. And the other person will appreciate it. So the next five secret is thought and feeling empathy. They could actually be like the second and third, but for whatever reason, they're combined together. And thought empathy is simply repeating back to the person what they just told you, using mostly the same words. I think I've seen this called mirroring in
Hmm.
other like schools, or so to speak. Um, and feeling empathy is based on what they just told you. You're kind of guessing how they may be feeling. And while these seem pretty straightforward and simple, and they actually are, they're really powerful because they're showing that you really are paying attention. You're really understanding and listening to what the other person's saying. And it sounds very therapeutic. And trust me, you might think it sounds like silly or stupid for someone just to repeat back what you're saying, but go talk to someone, vent about something, and have someone use the thought empathy on you, and it feels amazing. And believe me, it feels amazing. And then the feeling empathy just takes it even a step further, because not only did they hear what you just said, now they're actually trying to put themselves in your shoes and saying how you might be feeling. So let's say you were venting about an Amazon return that just kind of went awry, and I said, "Oh, whoa! So you're saying like last Friday, you sent this to Amazon and they still haven't credited your account? Wow, that is frustrating. I can imagine you're pretty upset by that." Super simple. I just repeated back what we said. It just feels very therapeutic and calming. And now I'm even guessing how you might be feeling. And that's probably how you're feeling. Oh, this person really gets me. He really understands me. And just feels tremendous.
It really does feel so good. Yeah, because like sometimes like if you just say something and someone says nothing, or they're just thinking about it, like in my head I'm thinking now, did you even hear what I said? Like, did it make sense to you? Do you even remember what I said? And when someone just acknowledges, oh yeah, I heard exactly what you said, yeah, like I'm right there with you, and like yeah, I could, I can imagine how annoying that was for sure. um it feels so good. But I don't know if you would
Yeah.
have to say that for sure at the end, because you want to like isn't that one of the errors you can make, is you want to just kind of guess. You don't want to assume how they're feeling, which is
Oh,
different.
right,
Like,
right.
well, what do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like all these secrets, there's like no hard and fast rules, but there's probably a few things you want to kind of shy away from doing. And one of those, in the feeling empathy, it could be an error to use more certain language around the feeling empathy. But if it's very obvious the
Hmm.
person is very upset, I think there's no problem saying you must be, or
Hmm.
um, yeah, I guess you're really upset. But I guess if it's more uncertain, and you're not you don't want to put words in their mouth, and especially with like stronger emotions like anger or frustration or annoyance, you definitely don't want to be putting words in their mouths. And there you want to use softer language, like I guess, or I suspect, or maybe, I'm wondering, things like that. Because if you start saying to someone, you're angry right now, or you must be angry, they might actually get kind of pissed off at you, because now, like, the anger is a strong emotion, and now you're kind of telling them, hey, you're losing control, and that's not going to feel very good.
Yeah,
Plus you might be wrong. You might be wrong. And if you're wrong, it doesn't sound so bad when you saying I'm wondering or I'm guessing. um,
yeah. Yeah, then people just no, not exact. No, what I'm actually feeling is, yeah, they'll just be kind of drawn to correct you and tell you what they are feeling.
Yeah. And the one other point I would make is kind of like I said before, this whole framework of the five secrets, it just, for me, it's very like empowering because it provides this game plan on how to execute conversation. And I would say the thought and feeling empathy sounds very basic, but it forces you to pay attention. It forces you to actually listen to what the other person's saying and then try to guess how they may be feeling. So if you know you're going to have to do some thought and feeling empathy, you're going to be paying attention. But if you're not, you're just going to be focusing on what you're going to be saying next, which is by definition going to make you less interesting and less enjoyable to talk to.
Totally.
Besides using words like I'm wondering, I'm guessing, or maybe you're feeling this way, if you do use a strong emotion like anger, you usually want to kind of attenuate that a little bit by saying, I'm sensing or I'm guessing you may be a little bit angry.
Mm.
So you want to even soften the blow a little bit more because anger is such a strong emotion. Because if you're saying, even if you say, maybe you're angry right now, well, they may be thinking, okay, I'm angry, but I'm not that angry. So if you say a little bit angry, it's more gentle because some people, we don't want to be recognized as being angry. And that could be like not thought of as a positive trait.
For sure. And one thing about feeling empathy I just wanted to add is that I find it the best five secret. I just think it's like so powerful. And maybe that's because I don't do it and I find it kind of like awkward to do. But then when someone does it to me, I just feel like huge warmth from them. Like, wow, they really care. Um, yeah, so I'd say that's possibly my favorite five secret.
No, I agree with you. I think it is really powerful. And for some reason, for me, it's the one I have the most difficulty using.
Mm.
And I think it's maybe because of all the five secrets, it's probably the one I absolutely never used to do. uh, and so it's been the hardest one to actually implement. And it feels like I'm being fake sometimes because
Mm.
it's so counter my kind of natural inclinations. But I think generally speaking, when you use it, especially appropriately, people love it. So um, it's something I try to work on continuously, and I have gotten better at it. But it requires more work. But it
Mm.
is very powerful.
Tell me about the next five secret, the I feel statement.
Right, that's a good one. The I feel statement is quite simply the way it sounds is where you express how you're feeling in a genuine and authentic, uh, non-threatening manner. And you can use the words I feel, but it doesn't have to be the case. You could say things like, I'm feeling very down right now. I feel really sad, or I'm upset, or I'm happy, or I'm angry right now, or I'm feeling really rejected or alone. Those will all be examples of I feel. The the key thing is you want to just express how you're feeling, and you want to avoid converting an I feel statement to um, in a passive aggressive counterattack. So that would be an error. You're just purely focusing on how you're feeling in an authentic and genuine way. And oftentimes people use this incorrectly and they'll say something like, I feel very upset or angry when you attack me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not actually an I feel statement. That's like a counterattack,
Mm-hmm.
disguised as an I feel statement. And when we use I feel statements, we're only focusing on how we're feeling. We're not focusing on the other people. And again, usually those statements like, I feel annoyed when you do this, that really is the ego coming into play. And that's why this concept of death of the ego is so paramount.
Yeah, I think I make this mistake all the time. Like it's just so natural for me, like, oh, I feel like you're being so annoying right now, or something like that, rather than just like openly disclosing I feel hurt, or just feeling really like upset right now. Um, yeah, it's just so easy to make that mistake because like we just use I feel like that in daily speech so frequently, but it's really about just I feel and then an emotion. And it doesn't have to be so like rigid like that, but that's really the idea to keep that I like to keep in my head is like, you know, like what am I feeling like internally? Like what's like going on?
Right, exactly. Yeah, very well said. And I'd say if somebody is attacking you or making you feel uncomfortable and that's something you do want to talk about, I'm not saying don't talk about that, don't bring that up. But the whole idea of the five secrets is to establish this kind of emotional baseline and making sure you're kind of understanding each other on an emotional and empathetic level. Uh, so if you want to talk about something that's reoccurring, like if you feel like you're being attacked, that's fine, but not in the first couple passes of interactions, because that's just going to put people on the back foot and make them defensive, and it's just going to lead to argument. But once you do some good five secrets and good authentic I feel statements, then you can move on to maybe trying to solve the issue that's kind of really at play here. But in the first couple passes, that's just only going to lead to more divisiveness.
Yeah, so true. Like the moment you just start trying to fix it and solve it, you're just gonna get sucked into an argument and like a battle.
Right, exactly, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's about it. That's pretty, I think I mentioned the error there about, I feel like I feel upset when you attack me. That's a pretty classic passive aggressive counterattack. Um, and I guess, oh, also one is when you say something like,
Mhm.
I feel like you don't respect me, something like that.
Mm,
That's actually, there's no feeling words there. There's no emotions.
yeah.
Usually if you have the word like in there, it's not an I feel statement because you're not expressing how you're feeling. So I feel like you don't respect me. I haven't said how I feel. Now, if I said I feel alone or abandoned, or I feel um, maybe because I feel disrespected or I feel inadequate, those would be I feel statements. But feeling like I feel like you don't respect me, you haven't expressed how you're feeling.
You're right. It's like the concept of being vulnerable, which people always talk about. Like at a certain point, you have to be vulnerable. You have to say just how you're feeling. I I don't do that. Like I mean, I try to do it now, but like that was also very unnatural for me. It's scary. So, but it's so powerful because like when people really see how you're actually feeling and that they've actually hurt you, you're in pain or something. I mean, that natural response like kicks in. Like, let's say, my boyfriend, like if he ever expressed that, I'd be like, oh no, like
Right,
I really
right.
hurt him. Like I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And it could also be used in a positive way. If you told me about, let's say, a new video you posted that got 1 million views or something like that, oh, I'm so happy for you,
Hmm.
or I'm really happy about that.
Yeah,
That's just an I feel statement, or wow, that's an I feel statement. So it doesn't always have to be expressing like a negative or a strong emotion. It could just be, oh, I'm really happy for you. And people like to hear that you're happy for them. And so even though you may be feeling that, I know me in the past, I may have been happy for someone. I didn't know how to communicate that. So I just
mhm,
literally would never express it. Now I know that's an I feel statement. So I try to remember more often than not, say, oh, express that I'm happy for the other person. And they like that.
totally. Yeah, like I had a really similar experience where it's like I was feeling these things all along, but I never knew that it was okay or a good thing to express it. So when I started trying to just use like the five secrets model and just add in like an I feel statement, I'm like, oh, wait, like I was feeling that all along, but I can just say that, and that's natural and that's good.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. It's like, and just getting back to the whole framework of the five secrets, because this is like, feel like a tried and tested way of communicating that works. It just gives you a lot of confidence instead of just trying to guess or kind of aimlessly walk through literally every conversation in your life.
Mm.
This is very calming and empowering.
Well, what's the next secret?
Well, the fourth secret of the five secrets is stroking. Um, and this is quite simply, we're trying to convey a sense of warmth and compassion and admiration for someone else, um, in an authentic manner. And it could be thought of like giving someone else a compliment, but usually it's something that's like stronger and deeper than that. Because sometimes compliments can be somewhat superficial. Um, so while you can say things and compliments generally work and feel very good, like, oh, you're a great dad, or you're a great person, or you're a fantastic lawyer. Yeah, those sound really good. I would say the true essence of stroking is to really focus on some traits or qualities of the other person that really impress you or that you admire. So I would say something like, well, Victoria, it's just really been such a joy to know you and converse with you, because you're so open and willing to learn and kind of expand your horizons. And I've just been impressed by the path you've taken, and I really admire your open-mindedness. And I just I look forward to learning even more from you. Things like that. So I'm not just saying, "Oh, Victoria, you're smart, you're talented." I'm kind of expressing what I really do like about you in a genuine, authentic manner.
So as opposed to a compliment of just like, you're a really smart guy, it's like deeper where it's like, I admire your intelligence like so much. I learn a lot from how you think, or something like that more.
Yes, exactly. Yes, and I don't think compliments are bad.
Mhm.
But just it's even better to do this deeper level of stroking. We're kind of focusing on traits or qualities of a person that really impress you, or things that you admire. I just think that that just sticks more. And a lot of times as well, the compliments can be kind of an error of stroking, because if someone's feeling bad or upset, like someone, like let's say your kids in high school and they're studying for an exam, or they failed an exam, and they're like, oh, don't worry about it, you're a smart guy, you'll do better the next time, and you're really a strong student. Well, that may not be the worst thing to say. Sometimes it can feel quite bad and quite negative, because you're not appreciating how the other person's feeling. You're not doing all the other secrets that we just talked about. But if you said something like, well, I could tell that, doing well in school really means a lot to you, and you have high standards for yourself. And well, I admire that, because, um, you hold yourself up to a high standard. And it's great to see.
Fantastic. Even just hearing you say that, I'm like, oh my God, like I'm gonna cry because that's something I feel like I also crave. I mean, it's like that warmth and love and like appreciation that I feel like is just so missing, like in a lot of people's lives. I mean, like a lot of people, their parents like never once, say I love you to them or express that. And like how people like go their whole lives like craving to hear that, and it's just with the five secrets, you kind of put that in every interaction. And it just brings people like what they crave to feel the most from other people, which is just like, acceptance and appreciation and respect. And I like you. So it's a very deep secret.
Yeah, no, it is. And especially, I mean, this might be repetitive, but just getting back to one of the general five secrets errors about not rescuing or cheering up or cheerleading
Mhm.
or helping. A lot of the people, especially therapists, get in this mode of cheering up or cheerleading, and they think they're doing stroking, but it's actually really quite irritating and annoying, because we think we're using this secret of stroking, but we're really not doing stroking, and we're just avoiding using the other secrets of disarming and feeling empathy and I feel statements to really understand how difficult it is for them in this moment. And it's a way, it's almost like a way to avoid doing the other secrets that may be more difficult.
Totally. Yeah, because I think that like it is really vulnerable to do the stroking. Like you do have to be kind of strong in a way. It's easier to do the cheerleading because I feel like it is kind of fake in a way. Like you can just say anything and we're like, oh, you got this. You're
Right,
amazing. You're great. And like
right.
great and amazing, they're kind of meaningless in a way. But when you do stroking, you really have to be vulnerable and say kind of like your honest feelings about the other person. It's really quite vulnerable and hard. I think people like are scared sometimes. Well, I know
Oh
I am.
yeah, yeah, that's a good point. You also, it requires more like reflection and thought on your part,
Yeah,
which is why if it's done properly, it comes across so authentically and it feels so good. Because
yeah,
I could say you're a great dad. That may be true, but anyone can really say that, and it does sound kind of cookie cutter.
hmm,
If I say, I really could tell that family is really important to you, and your kids mean a lot to you, and you're really willing to support them in any way you can, and I just want to let you know I really admire that. It just feels so much better, and also requires observational skills and understanding of the situation that anyone and the brother just couldn't mention off the top of their head.
what you just reminded me of is like I talked to my dad and I kind of used like the five secrets on him and I did do like a lot of stroking and my dad is not really he's not good at the five secrets. Like he never does stroking. And so you would kind of think maybe he wouldn't be receptive to it or he wouldn't like it because it's like, well, clearly like that's not his thing. But when I did stroking to him, what was incredible is that it seemed like he loved it and it really
Mm,
like melted him and kind of like softened him. And then what's so kind of incredible is that then he started doing it more to me, like very noticeably. And it's like sometimes you have to be the one who goes first and demonstrates these five secret skills like stroking and thought empathy and feeling empathy, even to somebody who you're thinking is like never going to respond to it. But amazingly, sometimes they do. And then they end up like you give them the permission to kind of do it back to you. Well, at least that's what happened in my situation. It was incredible. Then he was just using like stroke. I mean, I'm like, where was this my whole life? Like I was craving this so much my entire life, but all it took was me doing it first and kind of like
right.
giving him permission in a way.
Yeah, I think I love that story, and that is really powerful. And I think a lot of that gets back to this death of the ego, right? Are you willing to die for this other person? Are you willing not only to agree with their criticisms, are you willing to look for something good in the other person and praise them for that and show admiration for that? And paradoxically, when you do that, you'll probably open up the lines of communications and you'll get it back twofold in return. Um, I also think it's worth noting that, especially in relationships, like family members or loved ones, words like "I love you" or "you mean so much to me" or um, "I'm really looking forward to spending more time with you" or "I really love the time we spent together." Those are all forms of stroking as well. Well, the last five secret is inquiry, and this is quite simply is just throwing the ball back into the court of the other person and telling them, look, I've heard everything you've told me. Now tell me more. That's quite simply what it is. And it could be things like very open-ended questions like, you know, tell me more how you're feeling about this situation, or how are you feeling now? It can be more close-end questions like, oh, so you were at the store the other day and this person just bumped into you with their car. That must have been, I suspect that was quite annoying. What did you say? Right. So that's a more specific question. Generally, you want to open up with more open ended questions, then you can get more specific, but either of them are fine. But quite simply, after you've done most of the other five secrets, you just basically say, look, I've heard everything you said. I'm really interested. I'm paying attention. Now here's the mic again. Tell me more. And from the other person's perspective, that just feels amazing because here this person just, did the disarming technique. They did thought and feeling empathy. They did some I feels. They did some stroking. And now they're saying they want to hear more from you and they want you to tell more of the story, how you were thinking and feeling. Just, it shows that they're genuinely interested in what's going on in your life and this situation in particular. And I would say this probably parallels really closely with a lot of the points that Dale Carnegie makes in the How to Win Friends and Influence People, is to really see things from the other person's perspective and show a genuine interest in the other person. And the way to show a genuine interest is to ask questions.
Yeah, and I agree that I've been like surprised how good it feels to just have someone ask an open-ended question, like, oh, tell me more. I'm like, God, like I have so much to say. Absolutely, I'll tell you more. Yeah, it feels so good. Sometimes when I say it, I think, oh, this is going to come off kind of weird, just like some open-ended question. But no, it feels really good.
Yeah, definitely. And the bottom line is, we all like to talk about ourselves. And maybe people don't want to admit that, but it's true. And once you get going, you just
Mhm.
want to keep talking about yourself. It feels really good. So if you're kind of talking along there and going for 5 minutes and talking about yourself and your problems or your likes and dislikes, and then someone on the other side is like taking it all in and then ends it with saying, "Oh, that's really interesting. Tell me more about that." That, I suspect that was quite irritating for you. How did you feel then? It just feels, oh wow, they want to hear more about that. Just incredible. And I know I remember this is something I think I did learn a little bit when I was, going for job interviews in college. And I bought a book on interviews, and the book made this point is just to ask about the interviewer and get them talking. Instead of you talking about yourself, ask the interviewer about themselves. And that was my number one focus when I went on job interviews. Even if it had nothing to do with the job, is usually if it was talking to some MD at some bank in New York and they just started talking for 20 minutes about, when they were an analyst or whatever, had nothing to do with the job. And half an hour passed, like, and our interview slot was done, and like, oh, they were just as happy as could be. And I apparently did great in the interview, but I really said very little. And it was just the interviewer that was talking the entire time. So I would say for job type situations, that probably is the most powerful one. I remember I was talking I had this interview it was like the final round interviews at Bear Stearns. I'm not sure you remember, it was this investment bank
Mhm.
before.
Mhm.
Most of them, like in the last crisis, kind of got consolidated. But anyways, it was with the final rounds. It was in some hotel in New York City. So they put us up in these hotels, and they had the interview room, and the final round was with like some big MD or something like that. And this guy was asking me a few questions, and then I didn't think it was really going that well, because I don't really feel like we had very similar personalities. And then I just started asking about the night before. I had heard about this guy was sort of like a legend within the bank because he had started in the mailroom or something like that. So I started asking about that story.
Oh, wow.
Then he just started talking for like 25 minutes. And then I literally didn't talk for 25 minutes. And he just went through his whole life story from the mailroom to becoming like a senior managing director at Bear Stearns. And then basically before the interview even ended, he basically said I had a job offer. And I think that the reason is people love talking about themselves, and it's just human nature. And so when you give people the green light to do that, people are just going to love it, and they're going to love you for it. I would also say one of the maybe errors of the five secret would be to ask the other person to like, how can I help you? That's not really like, again, maybe that is something you ask later on down the line, but in the first couple passes, you're kind of asking the other person to like kind of solve the problem, where you're there to kind of offer empathy and support, but asking them, how can I help you, or what can I do from you, or what can I do differently, that doesn't sound very empathetic, and you're actually focusing on you versus focusing the other person. saying, what you want to do is kind of throw the ball back in their court and say, hey, tell me more about how you're feeling. You That feels good, but now you don't want to throw the ball back in their court. Now tell me what to do. Now it's like back on me, right? And the focus should really be on the other person. But again, maybe later on in the conversation, if there's some empathetic baseline and the feelings are kind of calmed down, and you're both kind of on the same page and feeling good, and like, hey, I'd really like to help you out here, and you really mean a lot to me. Is there anything I could do for you here that would kind of help you out in this situation? That's fine. But in the first couple of passes, when the person's emotional or upset, that's not going to feel really good. Because if I'm upset, I just want to have my experience and frustrations validated. I don't want to like start like solving the problem. I want someone to
Yeah.
appreciate how upset I am and why I'm so upset. And I want you to understand that. I want to, then once I kind of can sit with those emotions, and if other people sit with those emotions with me, which feels really supportive, then maybe we can move on to actually kind of solving the problem, so to speak, if there is even a problem to begin with. But to go into problem solving mode from the get-go is just kind of anti-five secrets and anti-empathetic.
If someone wants to go about getting better at the five secrets and practicing them, what do you suggest they do?
Yeah, great question. I'd say a few different things. I would say if you really want to study these in depth, I would invest some time and energy to buy Dr. Burns's book, Feeling Good Together. That really talks about relationships and really goes into depth into the five secrets of communication, in addition to some advanced empathy techniques. And that would be kind of, so to speak, the Bible of the five secrets. And then I think it's podcast 65 to 70 on the Feeling Good podcast. Burns goes over each of the five secrets. And those are each 30-minute episodes, so they're pretty short. So after you do that research, then I would just quite simply start working with a journal every single night and come up with back and forth, something someone else said to you, and what was your response? Just one specific sentence, not a general idea or complaint, just like one thing he said, one thing you said. And then if your response wasn't very good, how would you revise that response using the five secrets? And then what I would do is go about just using one of the five secrets each day. So don't get overwhelmed by using all five, but just today I'm going to focus on, or this week, just focus on disarming technique and only use disarming technique. And then the next week, only use feeling empathy. And then as you get more comfortable, you can start weaving them in together. And I guess the final point I would make is every response doesn't need all five secrets. Some may only require one, like a great disarming technique. But over time, you could weave them together and you'll just develop your own little style and, I guess, way of speaking.
And don't you also have a weekly five secrets practice group?
Oh, right. Yeah, there's a meetup based in, we're doing it virtually, so it's in Florida, but I think anybody could join. I think it's called Building Better Relationships. And in that, we've been focusing on a weekly basis, the five secrets and other advanced empathy techniques that you read about in Feeling Good Together and that they discuss in the podcast. So, and it's a way where people could bring in examples from their own lives, and we kind of go word by word, sentence by sentence in the responses, and people found that to be especially useful.
And people could also work with you like one-on-one as like a five secrets coach.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a life coach, and I'm also certified in this framework of therapy of team CBT. In that framework, we work with, mood issues that would kind of maybe classically considered to be like anxiety or depression, or maybe habits and addiction, things like procrastination, in addition to things like decision making and relationships. And with the relationships, we focus heavily on the five secrets and interpersonal communication.